In 1919, scholars translating the ancient lamentations of uncovered a terrifying historical truth. It wasn't just sad poetry about angry gods. It was a harrowing eyewitness account of an extraterrestrial evacuation, fleeing a toxic radioactive, evil wind caused by their own ancient nuclear warfare. The Anunnaki abandoned Earth in their spacecraft, leaving humanity behind to suffer the fallout. Welcome to the Decode. This episode gets incredibly heavy, so go grab a hot cup of coffee and banana chips. Breath, clear your mind, be calm and settle down. Get comfortable, because we are diving deep into the tragic abandonment of humanity and the chilling reason behind our cosmic isolation. Before we break down these final stones, please hit that like button, share this video with a fellow truth seeker, and prepare your mind. Let's get into it.
Welcome to part 5 of our Anunnaki series. In our last episode, the Divine Council voted to let humanity drown in the deluge, but thanks to Enki's covert intelligence, the seed of mankind survived. When the floodwaters receded, the Anunnaki descended from their orbiting spacecraft. They looked at the devastated, mud-covered Earth, and realized their automated systems were destroyed. They desperately needed human labor once again, but the post-flood world was entirely different. The Anunnaki realized they could no longer micromanage the explosive human population directly. The Divine Council convened and made a historic administrative decision. They introduced a brand new political hierarchy to Earth. The Sumerian king list explicitly records this moment, stating, "Kingship was lowered from heaven." This was the literal birth of the human monarchy.
Indeed, Clara. Kingship was not a human invention. It was an Anunnaki corporate management strategy. The Divine Council appointed human intermediaries, often genetically carrying Anunnaki DNA, to act as a buffer between the gods and the masses. These kings were instructed in law, architecture, and mathematics. They were the middle managers of Earth, accountable directly to the Anunnaki CEO residing in the local city-state. This explains the concept of the divine right of kings that plagued human history for millennia. European monarchs claimed authority from God, because originally, their ancient Sumerian predecessors were literally appointed by flesh-and-blood extraterrestrial commanders. The king's job was to ensure the city functioned efficiently. The crops were harvested, and the resident deity was supplied with absolute luxury and order.
The great ziggurats of Mesopotamia were not just places of primitive worship, they were high-tech command centers. The top tier of the ziggurat was a restricted zone, the physical dwelling place of the Anunnaki deity. Humans lived in the sprawling mud brick city below, farming and weaving, while the king climbed the steps to receive operational data and technological blueprints from their extraterrestrial overlord. To prevent further infighting between Enlil and Enki, the Divine Council enacted a massive geopolitical treaty. They carved up the globe. According to Sitchin's translations, the Earth was divided into 4 distinct zones. Enlil and his descendants were granted dominion over Mesopotamia and Asia. Enki and his lineage, including his ambitious son Marduk, were granted the continent of Africa, centering their civilization in ancient Egypt. The third region was the Indus Valley, granted to Enlil's granddaughter, Inanna, but the fourth region was strictly neutral. It was the Sinai Peninsula, the site of the new post-flood spaceport. This facility was the lifeline back to Nibiru. To ensure no single faction could control interplanetary travel, the Council placed the spaceport under the command of Utu, an Anunnaki leader, sworn to absolute neutrality.
This division perfectly aligns with the biblical table of nations in Genesis 10, where the descendants of Noah populate distinct regions of the Earth. But this geopolitical treaty carried a fatal flaw. By dividing the planet into competing corporate territories, the Divine Council accidentally laid the groundwork for the first global wars. The Anunnaki brought their petty family politics down to the surface of our planet. As these regions grew, so did the egos of the younger Anunnaki generation, Marduk. Furious that his father Enki was politically marginalized, desired absolute supremacy over all 4 regions. He began asserting aggressive control over Babylon. The Enlilite faction, determined to maintain their global dominance, fiercely pushed back. The city-states, originally designed as peaceful operational hubs, became militarized fortresses. Ancient texts like the Mahabharata and the Enuma Elish describe a terrifying escalation in violence. This was not humans throwing spears at each other. This was extraterrestrial warfare. The gods took to the skies in their vimanas and sky boats, engaging in vicious aerial dogfights over the Middle East. The human populations, serving as loyal ground troops for their respective deities, were slaughtered by the thousands.
The factional war reached a breaking point. Marduk's forces were closing in on the neutral Sinai spaceport. If Marduk captured the launch facility, he would control the sole link to Nibiru, essentially holding the entire Anunnaki operation hostage. In a state of sheer panic, the Enlilite faction called an emergency session of the Divine Council. The records of this fateful meeting are preserved in a text called the Era Epos. The council debated the unthinkable. To stop Marduk from taking the spaceport, Enlil proposed the use of the weapons of Terra. These were apocalyptic devices hidden away since the Anunnaki's earliest days on Earth. Enki vehemently protested, warning that unleashing these weapons would irreparably scar the planet. But Enki was outvoted once again. The Divine Council authorized a preemptive, tactical nuclear strike.
Sitchin's analysis of the Era Epos is chilling. 2 Anunnaki commanders, Ninurta and Nergal, were dispatched in their aircraft. The text describes their payload with terrifying accuracy. Those who are cast down, their faces turn pale. A storm in a flood of light. They dropped these weapons on the Sinai spaceport to deny Marduk the launch pads, completely obliterating the facility and leaving a massive scorched crater. They also targeted the rebellious Canaanite cities aligned with Marduk, known in the Bible as Sodom and Gomorrah. The biblical account of fire and brimstone raining from the sky, turning Lot's wife into a pillar of salt, perfectly aligns with a sudden, localized nuclear blast. The intense heat instantly vaporized the cities, vitrifying the desert sand into green glass, a geological anomaly that still exists in the region today.
The Era Epos explicitly details the sheer scale of the destruction. He made the rivers flow with blood, he made the earth, the mountains and the seas to shake. The ancient spaceport was erased from the map, ensuring no faction could ever use it again. But the Divine Council made a catastrophic miscalculation. They failed to account for the prevailing wind patterns carrying the radioactive fallout eastward toward Sumer. This leads us to the most tragic series of texts in Mesopotamian history, the lamentation over the destruction of Sumer and Ur. The nuclear blast in the Sinai created a massive radioactive cloud. The ancient Sumerians called it the evil wind. The texts describe an invisible, odorless killer sweeping across the highly populated city-states. It wasn't a military army, it was a ghost that brought agonizing death to everyone it touched. The descriptions of radiation sickness in these ancient texts are undeniable. The Lamentations read, "Those who stood behind closed doors were struck down inside. People were terrified, they could hardly breathe. Their mouths ran with blood, their skin peeled off." It is a perfectly accurate, horrifying medical description of acute cellular degradation caused by severe ionizing radiation fallout. The great cities of Sumer were dying.
The Anunnaki gods realized their catastrophic error too late. The evil wind did not discriminate between humans and extraterrestrials. The radiation alarms in their ziggurats began to sound. The Divine Council was forced to issue an immediate chaotic evacuation order. The gods, who had ruled Earth like immortal kings for hundreds of thousands of years, were suddenly forced to flee for their lives from the poison they had created. This is the true meaning behind the abandonment of the city-states. Mainstream archaeology claims the Sumerians were just writing poetic metaphors about their gods ignoring their prayers. But Sitchin proves this was a literal, physical evacuation. The Anunnaki commanders sprinted to their remaining spacecraft, powering up the engines while their human subjects begged at the temple doors for salvation.
The Lamentations capture this heart-wrenching departure. Enlil abandoned his city Nippur. His sanctuary he left to the wind. Inanna abandoned Uruk. She took to the sky like a flying bird. As the radioactive cloud descended upon the mud-brick streets, the human population watched the glowing ships of their creators ascend rapidly into the atmosphere, leaving humanity behind to rot in the toxic fallout. The texts reveal a profound psychological shift in the Anunnaki during this evacuation. For millennia, they had treated humans as expendable labor. But as they hovered in their spacecraft in low orbit, watching the magnificent civilization of Sumer suffocate under the evil wind, an overwhelming sense of grief took hold. The lamentation over Ur records the goddess Ningul weeping uncontrollably from her ship as she watches her city perish. Ningul's lament is devastating. "My city which was built for me, has perished. The people who multiplied in it, have become corpses." Even Enlil, the harsh military commander, who once authorized the Great Flood, expressed profound sorrow at the accidental destruction of the Sumerian grid. The Anunnaki realized that their own factional warfare, their own petty cosmic politics, had destroyed the greatest colonial achievement of their empire.
This evacuation severed the direct physical link between humanity and our creators. For the first time since the genetic splicing of the Adamu, humans were utterly alone on the planet. The Anunnaki spacecraft retreated to Nibiru, or perhaps to orbital stations out of our reach, the Great Ziggurats. Once buzzing with advanced technology and alien commanders, fell silent, slowly turning back into lifeless mountains of crumbling clay. The psychological trauma inflicted on the human survivors was absolute. We were the orphan children of a toxic empire. In the centuries that followed, humans desperately tried to summon the gods back. We continued to bring food to the empty temples. We built cargo cults, enacting the rituals of the Anunnaki, hoping the skyboats would return. This abandonment trauma became the foundation of modern human religious longing.
Generations later, priests who had never seen an Anunnaki would stand before empty stone idols, chanting dead protocols. The memory of physical, technological beings morphed into the mythology of invisible, magical spirits. The truth of our origins was buried under the sands of Mesopotamia, waiting thousands of years for archaeologists like Layard to finally unearth the original clay ledgers. However, one major Anunnaki figure did not evacuate. Marduk, the ambitious son of Enki, was geographically shielded from the evil wind because his stronghold was Babylon. Further north, as the Enlilite faction fled the planet, Marduk seized his ultimate victory. He marched into the ruined landscape and declared himself the supreme ruler of Earth, rewriting history to erase Enlil and elevate himself as the singular, omnipotent god. Marduk ordered the scribes to rewrite the ancient Enuma Elish, the epic of creation. He literally commanded them to cross out the names of the older gods and insert Marduk in their place. This massive cosmic propaganda campaign successfully established Babylon as the center of the post-Fallout world, and firmly cemented the transition from a plural pantheon of Anunnaki commanders into the worship of a centralized solitary deity.
This geopolitical rewrite is crucial for understanding world history. The age of direct Anunnaki rule was over, replaced by the age of Marduk's religious supremacy. Humanity was no longer interacting with the diverse council of the Anunna. They were subjects of a single demanding ruler. The technological era of the gods was deliberately buried, replaced by superstition, astrology, and the enforced ignorance of the masses. Marduk's reign formalized the master-slave dynamic without the presence of the original architects. The knowledge Enki had secretly provided to humanity was suppressed. As the centuries turned into millennia, humanity completely forgot that we were a genetically engineered species with the latent capacity to rival our creators. We accepted our role as lowly servants to an invisible heaven, just as the Anunnaki had originally intended. Inside the grand temples of Babylon, the high priests carved the supremacy of Marduk into massive stone steels. They systematically chiseled out the symbols of Enlil, Anu, and even Enki. It was the first and most successful historical revisionism campaign in human history, wiping the memory of the alien divine council from the minds of the human race, and replacing it with the rigid dogma of ancient Babylonian religion.
As we look back at the abandonment of the city-states, the evidence is not just in clay tablets, it is reflected in our collective psychology. Why does modern humanity suffer from a pervasive feeling of cosmic loneliness? Why do we constantly look to the stars for saviors, or build massive observatories, hoping to hear a signal? It is the lingering epigenetic trauma of the day the gods boarded their ships and left us in the radioactive dust. Sitchin's framework demands that we stop viewing ancient myths as fiction and start reading them as historical trauma logs. The Sumerian lamentations are the desperate diaries of our ancestors surviving a nuclear holocaust unleashed by warring extraterrestrial executives. We survived the evil wind, we survived the departure, and we survived the deliberate suppression of our true origins. We are the resilient orphans of Earth.
The Anunnaki may have left, but they left their genetic signature inside us. We are the Adamu, the drive to build towering skyscrapers, to split the atom, to map the genome, and to build rockets that pierce the heavens. That is not terrestrial primate behavior. That is the Anunnaki software running in our hardware. We are replicating the very society that abandoned us, subconsciously trying to prove we are worthy of our Creator's legacy. But we must learn from the tragic failure of the Divine Council. They possessed godlike technology, but lacked fundamental ethics, ultimately destroying their own creation through factional greed. As humanity now possesses the capability for genetic engineering and nuclear annihilation, We stand at the exact same precipice. We must choose whether to repeat the destructive cycle of the Anunnaki, or transcend the violent legacy they left us.
From the ruins of Ur to the launch pads of Cape Canaveral, humanity's journey has been a relentless climb back to the stars. The clay tablets of Sumer are not just a record of our past, they are a warning for our future. The gods are gone, but their tools are now in our hands. The story of the Anunnaki is ultimately the story of us, a hybrid species finally waking up from a 4,000-year amnesia to reclaim our place in the cosmos. As we conclude Part 5, the puzzle pieces of human history finally lock into place. The Anunnaki arrived to mine gold, engineered us to do the labor, fought brutal civil wars over our governance, and ultimately abandoned the planet when their own nuclear weapons made the region uninhabitable. This is the data-driven reality preserved in the oldest written records of human history. The divine magic is gone, replaced by sobering cosmic truth. Sitchin's translations challenge us to look at the sky differently. We are not waiting for a mystical savior to return and fix the world, we are waiting for the corporate architects who left us behind in the radioactive dust. But the true power lies in realizing that we no longer need them, we carry their intelligence in our DNA. We are the masters of the earth now. The quarantine is over, and humanity's true cosmic evolution has begun.
A masterful conclusion, Clara. The silent planet we inherited is not a punishment, it is our canvas. We have audited the ancient scripts, stripped away the theological veil, and exposed the mechanical extraterrestrial reality of our genesis. The Anunnaki saga is the ultimate cautionary tale of power, genetics, and survival. As we reach for the stars ourselves, we carry the heavy, beautiful burden of being the orphans of the Abzu. Thank you for joining us at the Sanctuary Studio for Part 5 of the Anunnaki series. If this deep dive challenged everything you thought you knew about human history, please hit that like button, share this video with a fellow truth seeker, and subscribe to our channel. Join us next time, as we explore the Nephilim and the lingering bloodlines. Stay fiercely curious. Question the narrative, and remember, the stones never lie.